Live button, so let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plains of the internet before we go ahead and get started, because we've got a lot to get into today. It's going to be a short show again. Voice is a little bit rusty, but I think we're going to be able to make it through today. Got a little bit of a medical update here in a quick minute so that I can share with you what exactly is going on. But let's make sure that the stream is alive and well first before we kick it off and get rocking and rolling. And it looks like we're good on YouTube. So let's get started. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Gruler. I am a criminal defense attorney here at the R&R Law Group in the always beautiful and sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have represented thousands of good people facing criminal charges. And throughout our time in practice, we have seen a lot of problems with our justice system. I'm talking about misconduct involving the police. We have prosecutors behaving poorly. We've got judges not particularly interested in a little thing called justice. And it all starts with the politicians, the people at the top, the ones who write the rules and pass the laws that they expect you and me to follow, but sometimes have a little bit of difficulty doing so themselves. That's why we started this show called Watching the Watchers, so that together with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. And I'm grateful that you are here and with us today. We had a bit of a rough show yesterday, been a rough week or so. My voice has just been terrible, but I wanted to come back on and, of course, sort of apologize for the show yesterday. The camera was not working. My voice is in total disarray, but we're going to keep on moving with the show. I feel actually great. I feel really, really pretty good. It's just my voice. And so I just kind of need to work it out a little bit. So thanks for bearing with me. Quick update on what I'm taking. The show is not sponsored by any of these companies, of course, but let me share with you some of the remedies that we've been working on before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show. We've got, of course, Throat Calm. Oh, Throat Calm. Isn't that nice? Let's see what's in here. Oh, it's homeopathic. It is non-drowsy, melts under your tongue, and your body is going to help heal itself naturally. So that's pretty nice. So we got that going on in the show today. What else do we have over here? We have, oh yeah, this is another good one. We have Throat Coat. Throat Coat. So if your throat is not calm, then you can coat your throat, the whole thing. And so I've been massively coating my throat with Throat Coat. And so another real big reason why I got this in the first place, actually, my lovely lady friend this was Jennifer off of Twitter who recommended this, but she recommended this because it has slippery elm. Ooh, look at that. Come on there, slippery elm. Ooh, that's perfect. And so it's just, coating your throat, and it's very nice stuff. I also have a Z-Pack, which is great, and albuterol. And so we're going to get the show started. Let's get into it, my friends. All right, so what's on the agenda today? We've got to talk about what's going on at the border, because the border is a mess. As you know, I'm an Arizona boy, and so we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what's happening today. If you want to be a part of the show, place to do that is over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, where you can fill out this form if you want to ask a question. It is going to be a short show just because my voice is shot, but we do have a couple things to talk about, so we're going to get into it. Reminder, if you're looking for clips, there aren't going to be any clips coming anytime soon because we haven't been recording, but they're over at the new channel at Robert Gruler ESQ/clips. All right, so all right. I'm just taking a look at some of the comments and just sort of enjoying them. So thank you everybody for your support. Okay, so we're going to get into the news of the day. All right, the Biden border crisis continues. Yesterday on the show that lasted for 10 minutes, we talked about this photograph that is catching the internet by storm, and a lot of people are taking a look at this and sort of seeing what they want to see. We started to dive into it. I talked about the analysis of this being a Rorschach test. Depends on what side of the aisle you're on. If you look at that image, you kind of see what you want to see. If you're somebody on the right, you see somebody who is protecting the border, who is stopping illegal invaders from coming into the country. If you're somebody who is on the other side of the aisle, you're looking at immigrants who are just bringing food to their families, who just want to partake in the American dream. And so this is sort of one of these interesting things that happens in our society where two people can look at the same image and have radically different opinions about what is going on. And so yesterday, I was a little bit surprised to see all of the outpouring of anger at a lot of this, because to me, we're talking about a border. And when I think about borders, that's where things come together and stuff happens at the border. The analogy I was using yesterday was a line of scrimmage at a football game. There is a lot of activity there because one side is trying to get across the border. The other side is trying to prevent the team from getting across the border. And so you're necessarily going to have some problems there. And so when we're talking about the border in the United States, a scene like this wasn't particularly shocking to me. Now, other people on other side of the aisle have been outraged by this. And we spent some time here talking about a congresswoman by the name of Rashida Tlaib. She's very angry about what she saw yesterday. And this is what she had to post on Twitter. Now, I think I bleeped out all of the swear words in her tweet, but let's see what we have here. She says, "This is so sick." And she's referring to that photo. Says that the Border Patrol will continue to commit human rights abuses. Wow. Okay. So that's a big claim, right? This is a big claim. And what we want to do as we're going through this and analyzing these statements is, are they setting a standard? What is she talking about? Or what we see is what we are seeing. Did what we see in the images yesterday amount to human rights abuses? We're gonna find out. She says that cracking an effing whip, and this is a congresswoman, so she's dropping the F-bombs on Twitter, on Haitians fleeing hardship shows you that this system simply can't be reformed. Oversight Dems, House Judiciary should hold hearings immediately and act. So she was very angry about this. You can see I censored that word out. We have another representative says, "This is inhuman and utterly unacceptable. I'm calling for an immediate investigation into these videos and photos from Del Rio showing U.S. treatment of Haitian migrants along the border." And now she says whips in 2021, the nerve. And so that's another thing we have to ask ourselves. Were these Border Patrol agents actually whipping people, or were these just things that are attached to horses when people are riding them? I'm not a horse person personally, but I would presume that it is. So that was from another representative. We have the infamous AOC, hashtag tax the rich, says it doesn't matter if a Democrat or Republican is president. Our immigration system is designed for cruelty towards and dehumanization of immigrants. So the entire system is designed for cruelty. Okay. Immigration should not be a crime, she says. Well, it is. And its criminalization is a relatively recent invention. This is a stain on our country. That's according to AOC. And so, none of these three ladies, none of them were talking about the fact that there were 12,000 Haitian migrants who were camped out in Del Rio. They weren't talking about the fact that kids were being left in bushes. We covered that story last week, where these migrants were just, we can't care for these kids anymore, so we're just going to throw them in the bushes. None of them spoke out about that. None of them have said anything about any of the border problems that have been in existence since Joe Biden took office. It was only a problem when Donald Trump was in charge. Now it's kind of okay. But now when they see an image like this, you can see they all flip out. They all come out of the woodwork, and suddenly this is a big humanitarian problem. And they're all diving in on this. The White House has totally given this story legs. We're going to go through this in more detail. But I want to share with you this response from a Border Patrol source that says that's not the case at all. This isn't whipping. This isn't anything like that. Agents use their reins for a lot of reasons. Primarily, it's used to steer the horse, but agents will also spin them sometimes to deter people from getting too close to the horse. If they get too close, the horse can step on them, breaking bones, causing other injuries. Agents need to maintain control of their reins so they don't lose control of the horse, which can cause injuries to immigrants, the agents, and the horses. We are not aware of anyone being struck with the reins. That's from Julio Rosas. He writes over at Town Hall. And so that was kind of my take on it. This was, I don't have a lot of horse riding experience, but it is something that I recognize is a giant animal that needs to be controlled and maintained, and the people who do ride horses know how to do that, and that's why they've got the spurs, and they do a bunch of stuff that I don't really recognize what they're doing, but I recognize that they're doing it meaningfully. There's a purpose behind it. And so when I was watching the videos yesterday, I didn't see anybody out there with a whip like in the Roman gladiator movies, or when somebody's getting lashes or something on their backs. Nothing quite like that. It was people on horseback trying to maintain their animal and stop hundreds of people from rushing to the shores. So now the White House has taken a turn on this. They're going to be investigating it. And in fact, according to CBS, they're already probing. They're probing hard and long here. U.S. is probing incidents involving the border agents now. This came out September 21st. U.S. Department of Homeland Security on Monday pledged to swiftly conduct an investigation into what it called extremely troubling footage from Border Patrol agents on horseback aggressively dispersing Haitian migrants, saying the internal probe could lead to disciplinary actions. So they're actually going to investigate it and then theoretically charge these guys with some sort of disciplinary proceeding, right? Some sort of sanction for exactly what they were dispatched to do, which is to stop people from coming ashore. The Department of Homeland Security, in a quote, says, does not tolerate the abuse of migrants in our custody. We take these allegations very seriously, department spokesperson said. U.S. Customs and Border Protections and the Office of Professional Responsibility is investigating the matter, has alerted DHS, and blah, blah, blah. We have Alejandro Mayorkas, he's the Secretary of Homeland Security, also directed the department to deploy to Del Rio, to Texas, to ensure that they're carrying out their duties consistent with the applicable policies and training and the departmental values. And so we got several clips from Mayorkas. He's the secretary who refuses to call it a crisis, and he is now dispatching probes. So more probes to go down there to figure out why the Border Patrol agents were doing exactly what the Border Patrol agents were supposed to do, which is to stop people from illegally entering the country. And so we're gonna dive into that. We've got a lot to analyze, but as the border has been heating up, many people have been scratching their heads wondering, where is our anointed border czar, Kamala Harris? Recall that Joe Biden said that Kamala was the person most well suited to solve this whole situation. And so a long time ago, as soon as he was swept into office, he appointed her to go solve this. And she did. She went down to Guatemala, went down to Mexico, said, don't you come. They coming anyways. And nothing has really changed. And so a lot of people have been saying, well, where is she? Day by day elapsed over the weekend where thousands upon thousands of Haitian migrants were just storming the beaches, essentially, and setting up their little facility there so that they could immigrate into the United States. And Kamala, like Joe Biden, was nowhere to be found. Well, somebody pinned her down and got a little bit of an answer from her today. Here's what Kamala had to say.
What I saw depicted about those individuals on horseback treating human beings the way they were is horrible, and I fully support what is happening right now, which is a thorough investigation into exactly what is going on there, but human beings should never be treated that way, and I'm deeply troubled about it. The whole point is that we have to understand Haiti. I mean, talk about a country that has just experienced so much tragedy that has been about natural disasters, and we really have to do a lot more to recognize that as a member of the Western Hemisphere, we've got to support some very basic needs that the people of Haiti have to get back up.
She is like the worst politician, I think, in a federal office. Just, it's like she doesn't even have talking points for this. She knew this question was coming, and she's like, it's just horrible. I'm troubled. I'm deeply troubled about it. And I fully support the investigation. And so the White House is now shifting, right? They're pivoting. They're saying, okay, well, now what we've got to do is give this legs, because the story that we saw about thousands of people coming onto the shores was really bad. It was a bad look. And so now that there's an opening, there's a little bit of a wedge. The Border Patrol have done something that has a bad picture behind it. Whether they did anything bad, we're going to find out. But there's a bad image. And so now they can rally their base. They can go back to the progressives and they can say, you're right, this is terrible. And so she says it's horrible. And you're going, hello? It's your border. You were put in charge of it. You were the person who's supposed to be spearheading this whole thing. And her people, her propagandists are telling, are communicating to everybody, oh, it's about the root causes. She's going to go down and deal with women's issues and inclusivity and global warming and all of these other issues that don't have anything to do with people storming the border. So she's very upset about it. She is responsible for it. She's in charge of the government. Joe Biden specifically put her in charge of it. She's been absent entirely over the last 9 months. And so now she's just going to support an investigation because she doesn't know what else to say. And look at this stupid mask she's wearing. Also, it's hanging off her face. It's not even a real mask. Look at that. What a joke. Okay, so what actually happened here? We're going to break this down a little bit. I've got some pictures and some video. Is this whipping? Were there whips going on here? Let's take a look at what happened. This was the scene. We have taken a closer look at Del Rio, Texas. This is where the Border Patrol station is, and this is the bridge that we've seen a lot of the images where people are actually basically living and camping out under the bridges underneath there. And so what happened was Border Patrol came and they blocked this area here. They said, okay, no more people are coming across the shore. And so what the migrants did is they just made a beeline in either direction. So they went to whatever this is, what direction this is, east, north, whatever, over towards this yellow dot. And they were trying to come ashore this direction. They were also going down the riverbank, the Rio Grande, the other direction, and trying to come ashore over here near the orange circle. And so Border Patrol was just shoring up and saying, no, no, no. They were bracing up right on these riverbanks and just saying, nope, you're blocked, go back to Mexico, because that's where they were coming from. And what happened was we had scenes like this. More pictures look like this. And this came from the DailyMail. And, their language here is pretty, is pretty sort of provocative one direction. It says a Border Patrol officer is swinging what appears to be a lariat while trying to stop Haitian migrants from entering an encampment on the banks of the Rio Grande near the International Bridge. And so you see that, right? You see a very clear image of what this guy is sort of waving around. And I'm not a whip connoisseur by any stretch of the imagination, but doesn't look like a whip to me. It looks like something that's attached to the horse that he's using to sort of guide the horse. Looks like there's a lot of chaotic things going on around, and we've got multiple officers on horseback, multiple Haitian migrants with food and bags and debris all over the place. And so you're asking yourself, is that a whip? Is that a lariat? Is it a lasso? What is this thing? Go over to Wikipedia. A lariat also kind of redirects to a lasso, and it's looks like a lasso, and so that doesn't really look like a lasso to me either. We have another image over here. The devastating images, according to the DailyMail, were captured as migrants were trying to return to their encampment from Mexico, where they were buying much needed supplies. And so you can see this other image here, right? Another Border Patrol agent who has what looks like that lariat in his hand. And you can't tell what's going on here as it extends over to this migrant. But this is another image that a lot of people are very upset about, that, it looks like maybe it's touching him or something. Nobody knows. Here's another scene. We have Border Patrol officers cut the way of migrant asylum seekers as they're trying to return to the United States. There's a naked boy over here. We covered up his little bum back there. But, you can just see kind of the situation that's happening here, right? Naked kids, a horrible scene. It's a humanitarian crisis. There's no question about it. My heart goes out to the people who just want to, to live and improve their lives. That little boy has nothing to do with the situation. He's just being dragged around where his parents are being dragged. And all of this, in my opinion, is being caused by the Biden administration's policies. All of this is being caused because of their policies. They said that Donald Trump was such a racist monster that they needed to undo his policies. They did. Guess what happened? A lot of people are hurting right now. A lot of people are uprooted because they bought their campaign promises that America was basically open for business, and they're trying to fulfill those promises. And now, what? The question that I've always asked is, okay, if Trump is such a racist, are there more migrants now who are hurting or less? Are there more kids in cages or less? Are there more people displaced or less? Are there more naked kids on the Rio Grande or less? Are there more kids in bushes or less? There's more. So you say what you want about Donald Trump and those policies, but they were better policies because they didn't result in this type of garbage. Now the administration is going to try to clean this up. Here's another photo. Other officials can be seen reaching down violently to grab the migrants by the sleeves or the collars. And so, that's what happens when you're trying to stop people from going someplace. This is how it works. I don't know what they want to do. Send them a letter? Do they want them to be pepper sprayed? Do you want to just shoot them? Do you want to, a wall would have been a good idea, but that's not something that is an option anymore. So what do you do if you need to stop people from coming upon the shores so that they just can enter into your country, unless you just decide you don't want a border anymore, right? That's the alternative. Maybe we just don't have a border, which I think is what a lot of people on that side of the argument would want. So let's see. We have a clip here of the actual footage. So let's go through this and let's see, is this whipping? Is this humanitarian abuses? Is this a stain on America? Is this what AOC, Rashida Tlaib, what everybody is complaining about? Or what's going on? Let's watch this. There it is. Is he whipping him? No. I don't think that's a whip. I don't think that's whipping. He's kind of spinning that around. Don't you kind of, do that for your horse? I don't know. Didn't look like a whip to me. Didn't see anything there that looked anything out of the ordinary. I mean, we had, BLM protests that were way worse than that. So I don't really know what all the hubbub is about. But the White House is very unhappy about this. Very angry because what this allows them to do is just pivot. Oh, we don't have to talk about 12,000 Haitian migrants that are now camping out on American shores. We don't have to talk about 200,000 plus people coming across every border or 200,000 encounters. Now we can talk about racist white people. We can talk about those racist Border Patrol agents who are inhumane and who are treating these poor Haitian migrants who all just want to be here and be a part of America. They're monsters. How can this be something that we allow to happen in America? And so here's Jenn Psaki, who yesterday was just getting warmed up on this. We've got a lot more from a lot of the rest of the administration here. Here's Jenn Psaki saying what she said. Horrible, horrible scenes.
Hey, Jen, a follow-up question on Haiti. There are photographs and reports of border agents on horseback using what appear to be whips on Haitian migrants. Does the administration view that as an appropriate tactic? Can you speak to that? There are people who are upset about it.
Yeah, understandably so. I've seen some of the footage. I don't have the full context. I can't imagine what context would make that appropriate, but I don't have additional details. And certainly, I don't have additional context, April. I don't think anyone seeing that footage would think it was acceptable or appropriate. We just saw this footage. It's horrible to watch. I just have to get more information on it. Again, April, I don't have more information on it. I've also seen the video. I can't imagine what the scenario is where that would be appropriate. I'm certainly not suggesting that, but we've just seen the footage earlier this morning.
Horrible. I can't figure out a reason why it might be necessary to have people stopping other people from coming on the riverbank. Well, it's because there's a border there. And the reason we have a border is to delineate between America, which is supposed to have American citizens and American residents and visa holders and green card holders, and the people who are lawfully and legitimately supposed to be in the country. Many reasons for that. Why you might want to have a border. National security. You want a lot of... There's a whole slew of reasons that we're not going to get into right now as to why the border is necessary. But for some reason, this continues to escape the White House. This is all being pivoted back towards now it's a humanitarian crisis, I guess caused by the same government that is upset about it. So we have Mayorkas, Homeland Security Secretary, who was in front of the House today, I believe this was, and he's talking about what he's going to do. He's very upset about what he saw yesterday. Not about the 10,000 to 12,000 Haitian migrants, but about the response to that. Here is the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, Alejandro Mayorkas.
Images.
I'm very pleased you asked that question. It has been uppermost in my mind since I first saw the images late yesterday.
Terrible.
Mr. Chairman. We commenced an investigation in my direction immediately. The Office of Professional Responsibility within the Department of Homeland Security's U.S. Customs and Border Protection, number one. Number two, we alerted the Inspector General of the incidents. Number three, I directed that the Office of Professional Responsibility be present on site in Del Rio 24/7 to ensure that the conduct of our personnel adheres to our policy, to our policies, to our training, and to our values. I was horrified to see the images, and we look forward to learning the facts that are adduced from the investigation, and we will take actions that those facts compel. We do not talk.
Wow. So they really will spring into action, won't they, when it's meaningful to them. So when they see a couple images of a guy on a horse who is stopping, who's doing his actual job, then they're going to flip out about that. Did you see 3 things? And we're doing all of these things like they're really, making things happen now. And you go, where were you guys the last 9 months? Because the border is being flooded every month. And it was 200,000 last month, more than that the month before. But now everybody's getting involved. Office of Inspector General, everybody's going to come out there and inquire and investigate these Border Patrol agents who are doing exactly what they're employed to do, which is to secure the border. So this was the scene. This is the bridge that we talked about. And we saw where they were going up and down the Rio Grande. The question that a lot of people have been having is, how did the people get there in the first place? Because Haiti is not anywhere close. This is the scene, closer. The Border Patrol agent facility is right here, and people were crossing up and down the river. But this is the city of Benito. This is Benito Juarez, the streets. And over here, you can see we don't even see Haiti anywhere. If we zoom out a little bit, you see the entire country of Mexico. Haiti is not even on the map yet until we zoom way, way out. And then you'll notice it's way over here. And so it's not a short trek. Remember what Kamala Harris was talking about. She went down here to Guatemala, and she went down here to Mexico. And she said, don't you come. She wagged their fingers in her faces and said, don't come. And don't make that long, dangerous trip up through Mexico, up into the United States. Don't do it. Don't come. They kept coming anyways. But it's a little different scene here. A lot of these people apparently came from Haiti. They may have left previously. We're learning that many of them maybe were already in Mexico. They weren't getting on airplanes and then flying into Mexico and then flying into, or then migrating into the United States. They have been in Mexico for a long period of time and then just got the idea, boom, oh, borders open. Now it's a good time to go and make our pitch, make our efforts to get into the country. Del Rio migrant crisis. How did so many of them end up there? USA Today says that thousands of Haitian immigrants encamped at the Del Rio, Texas, entering through the Rio Grande or awaiting deportation or staying put and seeking asylum. How did they get there in the first place? Why did they go to the Texas instead of Florida, a state that's much closer to Haiti in the Caribbean nation? Many of the migrants, experts say, were likely already in Central America as powerful disasters, dysfunctional government made a steady flow out of migration from Haiti for a long time. But now economic opportunities are drying up in Latin America. Pandemic continues. Haitian migrants are seeking asylum now in the U.S. The end goal is always the United States, says Eduardo Gamera, professor of political science. And the pattern is one that hasn't really begun by the Haitians. It was begun by the Cubans. They're the ones who set this trail. And so, okay, we know that this has been going on for some period of time. Kamala Harris was supposed to be down there solving all of these extra causes, and none of that has happened. We have another clip here of what the scene looks like. I mean, it's just a steady stream of people. And we're actually going to hear from one of the Haitian migrants who is going to share with us a bit about his plight. So let's take a look at what's going on here. And again, ask yourselves if this looks like, a humanitarian, well, it is a humanitarian crisis. If this looks like inhumane treatment, right? These are Border Patrol agents who are on the other side of the riverbank. Here is the Haitian migrant.
We're having a hard time. Our family sends us money, but we can't eat. We have children, but don't have diapers. Look, now I have to cross to the Mexican side with wet money to be able to buy things for the child, and we have nothing. We're unable to eat. I need help with everything that's happening to us over there because there are a lot of children, and they're only removing the single parents, and the children are left alone. Just imagine.
So there he is spinning it again. The guy doesn't even flinch. All right. So you saw him spinning it again. The guy doesn't even flinch, right? Doesn't look like a whip to me. It is something that was a big problem yesterday. Secretary Mayorkas, the Department of Homeland Security, put on a U.S. Customs and Border Protection shirt on for a day, and then went down there and decided to play border security person. And so what he did is he says that, by the way, just letting you know, the borders are not open. They're not open. They look pretty open to me. If you saw them, they probably look pretty open to the Haitian migrants. That's why 12,000 of them came across. And so he can say it all he wants. Kamala can say it all they want, but the border is pretty open. That's why they were able to come across in such huge droves, causing the crisis, causing the response that the federal government now has to meet. And so here is Mayorkas, once again reiterating it's not open and, all that stuff. Here he is.
We have reiterated that our borders are not open and people should not make the dangerous journey. Individuals and families are subject to border restrictions, including expulsion. Irregular migration poses a significant threat to the health and welfare of border communities and to the lives of the migrants themselves and should not be attempted.
Yeah, so that was yesterday before those bad images came out. So his attitude kind of shifted. Yesterday was, okay, yeah, we're concerned about, I don't know, American citizens in Del Rio, Texas. We're concerned about American citizens in border towns all across the country. And it's not just the border towns, right? This stuff, problems that start at the border will continue throughout the rest of the country. You're seeing this in fentanyl overdoses and things like that everywhere. So it is a concern. Mayorkas comes out, puts on the shirt. Look at that shirt. U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Oh, man, he's really there. He's down for the cause. So that's cool. So he put that on, and now he's saying, don't make the dangerous journey. Okay. They might have been on airplanes, which isn't that dangerous. So they might have flown over there and landed and just come right in. Not sure what's so dangerous about that, but take your point saying they shouldn't come. So now they're going to be, issuing a response. Here is another clip yesterday from Jenn Psaki. I think this was Duly over from Fox News. He says, hey, speaking of the border, we have a border czar. she going to be working on this at all? She going to be solving this problem? She's pretty capable, according to Joe Biden. Where is she? Here is Psaki.
Global pandemic.
Where's the vice president on any of this? Isn't she supposed to be addressing the root causes of migration?
Absolutely, and she has been addressing the root causes of migration by working with countries in the region to ensure they have the assistance they need to reduce the number of people who are coming and trying to make those journeys across the border. We've actually seen some reductions in some of those numbers. That doesn't change the fact that this is a very challenging situation in Del Rio. We're working to implement our policies, and we're working to ensure we are also addressing root causes.
Just a quick one.
Okay, so she is doing it, okay, and it's working, according to Jen Psaki. And she says our numbers have gone down a little bit. Did you catch that? Very clever. And she's not wrong. The numbers actually in August were a little bit lower than June by like 8,000 people. It was like 208,000 in June versus 202,000 in August, I think were the numbers. And so, yes, technically accurate, but not really, right? It's still a major, major problem. And all of Kamala's work hasn't really done much of anything, because we're still seeing now in September another 12,000 migrants coming across the border, now causing a very, very big problem. It already was, but now you can see it. You can see tents and camps and people living under bridges. And they can't hide that anymore. Remember what they were doing previously. They were not letting people in to go see the kids in cages. We didn't see AOC going off and hanging from the chain link fences, crying her eyes out about what a humanitarian crisis this is. All of the show, all of it is now gone because it's a different administration. And the first opportunity they get to flip the narrative back on its face, they do it. And so that's what's going on here. Yesterday, somebody asked Mayorkas about whether this was a crisis. Julio Rosas, who's been down there, said, I asked Secretary Mayorkas if he will publicly admit now, finally, after all of this, there's a crisis. Since he recorded last month, apparently last month he said that there was a crisis and it's unsustainable. He did not. He says, I'm focused on meeting the challenge. Here he is.
Mr. Secretary, so you stated repeatedly that this is a challenge, but last month you were reported privately saying that what's been happening along the border is unsustainable and admitting that there's a crisis. So I'm asking, would you publicly admit right now, would you admit privately that what happened was a crisis?
I'm going to stop you right there. Let me just say very clearly, we are focused on meeting the challenge. We are focused on mission.
Okay, so, I can understand his perspective on that. I don't typically like to use the word crisis unless there is a real crisis. Sometimes people will say, well, everything's a crisis. You have those people that everything is just melting down all the time. And you go, well, no, it's a challenge. It's not a crisis, it's a challenge. Everything can get worked out. You kind of reserve things like the word crisis when there's major problems, like 12,000 Haitian migrants who are camped out under a bridge in Texas with naked children being left in bushes. Yeah, now that I think about it, yeah, it's a pretty appropriate time to use the word crisis. And it's not just me saying that. Here's the Washington Post saying that what one photo from the border tells us about the evolving migrant crisis, right? And it is a crisis, folks. It's something that is impacting a lot of different states. 26 different states signed off on this letter written by Arizona Governor Doug Ducey over to Joe Biden on September 20th, yesterday. You can see the seals of all the states up here that have problems with what's going on. It says, Dear Mr. President, as chief executives of our states, all the governors, we request a meeting with you at the White House to bring an end to the national security crisis created by 8 months of unenforced borders. The months-long surge in illegal crossings has instigated an international humanitarian crisis spurred by a spike in international criminal activity, opened the floodgates to human traffickers and drug smugglers, endangering public health, safety in our states. A crisis that began at the southern border now extends beyond to every state, requires immediate action before the situation worsens. So it's going everywhere. The negative impacts of an unenforced border policy on the American people can no longer be ignored Border apprehensions are up almost 500% compared to last year, totaling more than 1.3 million. More people than populations of 9 U.S. states. Folks, 1.3 million people, more than the populations of 9 U.S. states. So if you just looked at that like a voting block, that's a lot of people. It's a lot of power. 1.3 million people. Approximately 9,700 illegal apprehensions have prior criminal convictions. Cartels and traffickers making $14 million a day moving people illegally across the border. More fentanyl has been seized this fiscal year than the last 3 years combined. Almost 10,500 pounds of fentanyl when only 2 milligrams prove fatal, enough to kill 7 times the U.S. population. Coming across every day at the border. Despite the lack of federal action to reverse the crisis, many states have stepped up, committed unprecedented resources to support the security of our national border. We have heard directly from our constituents about the damage this crisis has caused in our states. It is our duty as elected officials to protect these communities, as it is yours. While governors are doing what we can, our Constitution requires the president must faithfully execute the immigration laws passed by Congress. Not only has the federal government created a crisis, it's left our states to deal with the challenges that only the federal government has a duty to solve. Our immigration system may be complicated and complex, Kamala, but the solution to ending the border crisis is simple and straightforward. As president, you have the ability to take action. We come directly to you seeking an open and constructive dialogue about enforcement of the border. We must end the current crisis, return operation to our laws. We respectfully request a meeting with you as soon as your schedule allows within 15 days. While we know your responsibilities as Commander-in-Chief are substantial, ending the national crisis and securing our states must be a priority. And so this came over from Arizona Governor, shout out, Governor Doug Ducey signed off on this. Of course, Governor Greg Abbott, state of Texas, Governor Kay Ivey, Alabama. We also have Ohio, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Utah, West Virginia, Wyoming, Alaska, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Maryland, Massachusetts, Mississippi, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, New Hampshire, and North Dakota. And so I think if you add them all up, I think that was 26 states. I could be wrong about that. But a lot of states, right? And a lot of problems. And this is something that I think a lot of people forget about. You know, it's not just that there are people who just want to come and open up a convenience store or something like that, right? They're not here to just necessarily just come and start new businesses. Yes, there are good people, like Donald Trump said, but there are also a lot of problems that are coming across the border, and a lot of states are recognizing that, including a whole handful of governors. And so we've got to ask ourselves, does anybody care about this? I've lived in Arizona my whole life, and the border has always been an issue, and it's a problem, and it's something that every single politician that I've ever seen ever has always promised to fix. They've all got ideas for it, and nobody has done anything about it ever. Because I think that, truthfully, both parties are kind of okay with the porous border. The Democrats want the votes and the demographic shifts. The Republicans want the cheap labor. Both parties are kind of excited about having a slave class of people who will just do whatever they say and be malleable to some degree. We know that they have a lot of disdain for regular, ordinary American citizens. And so if they can import people that are more compliant and more malleable, they both win. And so there's really never been any progress from anybody on the border, and I don't expect there to be anytime soon. But we do have Representative Kevin McCarthy, who's a Republican, who I'm getting in the habit of just asking myself, what are you going to do about it, buddy? Because he always comes out and gives stupid speeches like this on the House floor. Let's see what his solution is.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Over the past week, we have seen tragic images coming from Del Rio, Texas.
Yeah.
Caravans of migrants wading across the Rio Grande. Families sleeping under bridges, Border Patrol who are overworked and overwhelmed. These images don't show a border under control, as President Biden promised. Instead, they're a picture of chaos, incompetence, and a crisis. When President Biden picked Vice President Kamala Harris to be border czar, he assured us she was, quote, the most qualified person to handle the job.
Yeah, I remember that.
He also said she had a plan to, quote, stem the surge of migrants. Was the plan to dismantle Title 42 and return to Mexico, which would have prevented this crisis? Was the plan to release hundreds of thousands of migrants into the country each month without a COVID test? Was the plan to effectively give the cartels control over the border and disrupt local communities? If that was her plan, we can't afford it anymore. This is more than a disaster. It is a direct threat to American safety. The Vice President often says we need to examine root causes to solve the border crisis. Well, the chaos in Del Rio confirms that the root causes are Democrats' radical immigration policies. It's time for Congress to hold this administration accountable and secure the border. We need to hear from those responsible for this failure, starting with the Vice President. Right now, it seems she's more interested in visiting talk shows and football games than visiting the border. Madam Vice President, this isn't a news cycle to hide from. It's humanitarian, national security, and public health crisis that must be stopped. The American people need action and answers, not the largest amnesty plan in American history. Do your job before the crisis gets even worse. And with that, I yield back.
Okay, so that's great. Yeah, nice speech, nice little 2-minute whatever. What are you going to do about it? You introducing anything? Are you going to just get out there? Do you have a bill ready? Do you have your caucus aligned to introduce and do something? No, they're not doing anything. All they do is they get out. It's like patty cake with these people, right? When the Democrats are in charge, the Republicans, the border's terrible. Republicans are in charge, the Democrats come out. The Republicans are racist. The border's terrible. And so it just goes back and forth. Nothing is going to happen about it. But it's something that is just a spectacle for all of American political life, I guess. It's just something we're going to have to deal with. As the country continues to erode, why wouldn't the borders also erode? Kind of just makes sense. If everything else is crumbling, maybe the borders are as well. But he did bring up a good point there. You know, there are a lot of double standards that exist now because we have this situation here where many Americans are still being pressed under the thumb of this administration under COVID restrictions. You've got vaccine mandates now that are rolling out across the country. You've got a lot of insanity about what restrictions are appropriate for limiting actual U.S. citizens based on the coronavirus. All sorts of different restrictions are in place. We've got vaccine passports unrolling across the country. If you need to go into a store or a bar in San Francisco, you got to show your vaccine passport, wear a mask. Same thing in New York City and other places in this country. But if you are coming into the country illegally, you don't need to do that. You just have to just waltz right in. Not even a big deal. And so yesterday, Duly, once again, the only person in the press who's asking any reasonable questions, asked Jenn Psaki about this specifically and said, hey, you know, in addition to this crisis that you're causing, in addition to the kids being dumped in bushes and the naked children that are being washed ashore on the Rio Grande, maybe this is also causing a COVID problem. We've been barked at for the last 2 years about what a horrific disaster COVID has been, that we all have to do everything like giving up civil liberties every which way you turn in order to comply with whatever the overlords think is the appropriate course of action to deal with this pandemic. But it doesn't apply to certain things. It doesn't apply to protests if they're BLM protests, if they're George Floyd protests. Those are great. It only applies to certain contingents in this country. If you are a Trump supporter, well, you can't protest because you're going to spread the coronavirus. If you are somebody who is celebrating a Biden victory, that's democracy in America. That's just America celebrating the healing wound of the Trump years. And it also doesn't apply to Haitian migrants or the 200,000 people coming across the border every month, the 1.3 million people that Doug Ducey referenced in his letter. They're just exempt from it. And Jenn Psaki explains why. Here she is.
To our national security team and see what that process would look like.
A question about what's going on at the border. Is somebody asking the foreign nationals who are walking into Del Rio, Texas and setting up camps on this side of the border for proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test?
Well, first of all, I can readdress for you or re-talk you through what steps we
That
take.
is the policy for people who fly into the country. So if somebody walks into the country, right across the river, does somebody ask them to see their vaccination card?
Well, let me explain to you again, Peter, how our process works. As individuals come across the border, and they are both assessed for whether they have any symptoms. If they have symptoms, the intention is for them to be quarantined. That is our process. They're not intending to stay here for a lengthy period of time. I don't think it's the same thing. It's not the same thing. These are individuals, as we've noted and as we've been discussed. We are expelling individuals based on Title 42 specifically because of COVID, because we want to prevent a scenario where large numbers of people are gathering, posing a threat to the community and also to the migrants themselves. So those are the policies that we put in place, in large part because, again, the CDC continues to recommend Title 42 be in place, given we're facing a global pandemic.
Where's the vice president?
Yeah, where's the vice president? So, she goes on and says specifically, oh, they're not really intending to stay that long, which that could have fooled me on that. I think that they have every intention on staying. Now, what this administration is doing, allegedly, is sending many of them back. And so I've seen headlines. I haven't seen anything confirmed yet, but there are allegedly going to be 7 to 10 flights a day, just sort of currying these people back to where they came from. And so you got to ask yourselves many questions about that. What does that cost? How many other people does that take away from their other duties, right? What are the opportunity costs of that? If you have to take 12,000 people back and you've got the entire Border Patrol agency facilitating this reverse evacuation, I guess, of America, then now those people are not able to go and do other things. And so we also have to think about those costs. We have to think about the COVID costs, about transporting these people around. Right now, we're going to bundle them up on planes and send them back across the border. How many of those people are going to die as a result of COVID, if that is what this administration ends up doing? And how many people are actually going to be returned? What are the numbers going to look like? Are all of them going back? No, of course not. That's not going to be the case. They're going to claim it's probably going to be the reverse of Afghanistan. Oh no, we got everybody out. Yeah, same thing. No, it's all good. Numbers are good. Don't worry about it. Don't ask again. And so we'll see where this goes. I want to see what you have to say about it. We're going to take some questions here for a little bit and then wrap the show up early so I can give these vocal cords a little bit more time off. Let's see what you have to say about this over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We have, the president of Mexico is here. Says, what are all these Haitians doing in Mexico? How did you even get here? He's as confused as the rest of us. That was Obrador from Mexico. We have Monster One says, maybe you should take ivermectin for that horse voice. LOL. Get it? That's a double entendre, I think is what you call that one. Horse. It's, horse. We're talking about horses today. I was going to talk about another topic, but horses is good because I'm horse. It's very appropriate. It's almost like the universe is kind of making this happen. Thank you, Monster One. Good to see you again, my friend. I missed you. Avalon Acres says, I have horses. We ride miles and miles and miles. That is a split reins, not a whip. While it can be used to beat an errant person's, that is not what happened in this pic. Okay, that's from Avalon Acres. It didn't look like that to me either. I think the White House is making much ado about nothing, but that's what they do. I'm Not Gas says, another example of the elites never being around the rural or working class when they don't know that you need reins to control a horse. Another great point, I'm Not Gas, and I forgot to make that. I was thinking that, honest I was, but it was the idea that, these are Joe Biden's from Delaware, okay? Kamala Harris is from California, like San Francisco area. So what do they know about Texas or horses or rivers for that matter? Nothing. And have they ever been in an altercation? Not really. Joe Biden has been in the government for 40 years. So yeah, necessarily you're going to have some conflict when you have people rushing a border and other people trying to stop that from happening. What do you expect, idiots? And it's pretty easy to solve if you put a wall up or you have some other enforcement mechanisms, but they poo-pooed all of that for the last 4 years. And so now they're reaping what they sow. And as soon as there's an opportunity for them to change the narrative and reframe this as a racist, white, xenophobic, bigoted America responding to the black people coming across the shores, it serves them. It serves their political ends. It's dishonest as hell, but it's effective. You see what's happening. All of the representatives are out there just giving their base that little pellet. Oh, here you go. Yeah, here you go. Yeah, don't worry about 200,000 people who are coming in and shifting the demographics of this country and causing all sorts of additional problems that we just covered in Doug Ducey's letter. Don't worry about any of that. Worry about the whips. Worry about the guy wagging the split reins. It's an effective mechanism for them. Good one. I'm not gas. Thunder 7 says, would they prefer to shoot at the illegals who may or may not have COVID, TB, Ebola? Are the Border Patrol to risk their lives to protect these criminals? I say that all those who think it's racist, invite them to their home, their country, and deal with the Haitian invasion their way. Yeah. But see, they don't have to deal with it because they're in Washington, D.C. They're thousands of miles away from any of the border states. They don't know what's going on. They have no idea. They have no care in the world. The only thing that they think about is the color of people's skin. And they don't care about what their policies are actually doing to hurt these people. I have a lot of empathy for the Haitian migrants, and I mean that genuinely, right? I want people to live good lives and improve their lives and do well. And I want to help people. I've got a big heart, I think. And I try, I have empathy. But at the same time, it's not possible to solve all of the world's problems. And so one of the good ways to incentivize that, or to help solve problems, is to incentivize people to solve their own problems. And when you continue to act as an escape hatch for all of the world's problems, promising people that you can't care for them, you better be able to deliver on that promise. And you can't do it because there are not enough resources. And so the only thing that you do with your idealistic, big-hearted policy changes is cause more hardship. You cause more grief and more death and more suffering. It's not a good humanitarian thing to do. But they're going to continue to do it anyways because their base loves it. They love the white versus black. They love the culture wars going on. And they're going to continue to exploit it. But if they knew what actually was happening down here, maybe their story would change. AOC is here, says, I don't understand the difference between illegal migration and legal migration. They both similar, right? That's from AOC. Well, look, she doesn't understand much, obviously. So that doesn't surprise me at all. Licorice tea, someone says, really works. You sound worse than Monday, but happy to hear you feel better. Do I sound worse? Oh, great. Well, I think it's going the right direction. It's just a little bit hoarse. It's a little horsey. Monster One says, I wouldn't care if it was a whip. Seems like the least amount of force that could be used. I think less than lethal munitions would be justified. Start hitting these people with pepper sprays and beanbags. Sorry, not sorry, right? I mean, look, that's an alternative, I guess, if they don't want to use horses. Or what else do they want to do? We have I'm Not Gas says, and I'm not condoning that, right? I don't want to see people hurt or injured. I'd rather see them just go, oh, yeah, the policy of the United States is that they're not going to let us in, so maybe we're not going to go. I think that's probably the most effective way to do this, but they're not doing that. I'm Not Gas says, maybe the Border Patrol prefer that they don't use reins and they just trample people indiscriminately. Yeah, I guess. I get, maybe that's their alternative. I think what their real answer is that the United States should just welcome them in, give them a house, give them a job. Actually, a job is a lot of work, so probably no job. Just universal basic income. Come on in, tax all of the other Americans to make sure that all of the poor people in the world are well cared for. We'll see how long that is sustainable. Sir Kex-a-lot says, another nice piece of look here and not there. What's really going on today? Yeah, absolutely. And the White House is pivoting. You can see it. Mayorkas is doing it. We've got Kamala's out there now doing it. Jenn Psaki is doing it. They're all, look over here. Don't look at what we're doing. We have Software Nugget says, incentivizing so many people to flood the border and camp out with their kids is the real human rights abuse. As is incentivizing these people to leave their kids unattended at the Border Patrol to find. It's sick. Yeah, it's a sick thing that's happening. It's really sick, and our lunatic government is causing it. Thunder 7 says, the good news is that the government is deporting the Haitians back to their country. What gives? Are Haitians like Cubans and only vote Republicans? Now over 1.2 million illegal Latinos since February, no letting up. It's complete madness, like the entire Democratic Party. That's from Thunder 7. Good to see you, Thunder. Google's doing its thing now. Look at this. Oh, there it is. It's back. Okay, so Google's here. I'm Not Gas says, if you want to talk about some problems in Haiti, we could always look into what the Clinton Foundation was doing with adopting the Haitian children. A lot of gruesome, disgusting things in that story. No doubt. Jay He says, I was disappointed you didn't play a Kamala cackle after her soundbite. You know, we'll get the Kamala cackle. Still a little bit skittish. You know, I've been off for a few days. I know that everybody's sort of, dealing with my voice. I don't want to double down on two just horrific voices. And so that would be like really mean. I understand it, but I'm trying to ease into the show. Good to see you. Drearier Spider says, sound much better today, Rob. On Haiti, why are so many fleeing? I thought the totally legit Clinton Foundation raised hundreds of millions of dollars to help Haiti and its people. Where did all the money go? I don't know. Somebody should ask Hillary Clinton about it. Probably right into the Clinton Foundation or into her cronies or wherever. But I'm sure it didn't help the Haitian people. We know that that's not how it works. Former LEO says, how about razor wire on our side of the border? They could throw fireworks. They could throw canned food, frozen water bottles, cross at your own peril. It says, or they could just, use lethal force, which of course is sarcasm, not encouraging that. Don't want any of that to happen. We have Monster One says, and good to see you, former LEO. We have Monster One says, I don't know the context of the thing that didn't happen, but I condemn it anyways. It's from Monster One, yeah. Because it's the right narrative. She knows where this is going. Oh, I heard that the white Border Patrol were very mean towards those immigrants. Oh, I didn't see it. Don't need to see it. I already know what my opinion is. And I'm grateful that that happened because we're going to talk about that now indefinitely. And we're going to send the Secretary of Homeland Security in front of the Congress. And he's going to also, mill around on this topic for some period of time. Major says, oh, great to give China more propaganda to use against us. This is only happening because the Clinton Foundation needs more money, government money, from their assistance given to Haiti. The Dems see what they are going to need, more money for campaigns coming up. Haha, that's from Major. Good to see you, Major. Yeah, China has a lot, don't they? We have, I'm Not Gas says, they are going to nail that CPP agent to a cross for nothing but optics. Yeah, a guy who was out literally doing his job when the federal government has been completely asleep at the wheel for the last 9 months. Yeah, he's going to feel the wrath of the current administration. Jeremy's here, says, hey, Rob, your voice is sounding great. Thank you, Jeremy. I know that's not true, but I appreciate your encouragement. This story was obviously designed to shift the focus from a lack of border being protected to an agent on a horse. Why isn't anyone appalled about the fact that the Border Patrol agents don't have vehicles and they're forced to ride horses? I'm sick and tired of incompetent people that are pretending they know how to run a country. I'm surprised they didn't claim the horses to be racist. It's a good point, Jeremy. You don't know. You don't know those horses these days. It's good to see you, my friend. Thanks for the nice comment. Thanks for being here. It's good to see you. I missed everybody, man. I missed not doing the show. Peely Wally says, Rob, hope you're feeling better soon. Regarding the border troubles, I wish countries in the West, including the UK, where I'm from, would adopt a hardline approach to illegal immigration. It's like I said before, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and so on, they have no troubles with illegal immigrants. It's because they know not to test the borders and the laws of those countries. A hardline approach is the only thing that will fix it. If people know they will be sent back straight away, they won't come. It's a battle that can be won, but not by leaders of our current countries. That's from Peely Wally. Completely agree with that, right? It's about that. It's about disincentives. You can come if you want. We're just going to turn you right back around. You're going right home. Like immediately. And then guess what happens? People go, oh, well, didn't work out. Yeah, because he's back here now. So I'm not going to go. But when they get to come and remain in the United States while their asylum cases are processed, or they get a notice to appear. Do you understand that's what's happening? the consequence here is that if the Border Patrol is overwhelmed, they can't process people. So they give them a ticket, essentially. They say, you got to come back to court. It's a notice to appear. Come back. Now go do whatever you want. Do you think they're coming back? Take a wild guess. We have Deadmau5 says, I'm sorry, but what was the intended goal with the horses? It looked like they were just pacing back and forth, a little 4-foot wide dirt road. People were still strolling by them in the background. Yeah, it's a good question. I think that it was just kind of a show of force. You know, it's like you're not establishing a beachhead here. We're making sure that you're going back across and, you know, go further down or go back over there, but you're not coming, right? I think it's just to slowly encourage people to not cross the Rio Grande is all it was. We have some more. No Doubt says, I think it is brilliant to use horses to herd large groups of animals. Yes, we're all animals. And I can't think of a safer way to do it. Can you imagine doing that in a Jeep and accidentally running over someone? Horse will avoid stepping on them. Not a whip, not a lariat, just part of the reins and spinning to make the horse and border agent look bigger. Works on cows too. The Biden administration wants to remove any solution the Border Patrol uses to reduce the flow. It's from No Doubt. Good comment on that. Thank you, No Doubt. A couple more. We have Pissed Off Nadarb. Says this message is towards everyone, not at you. Oh. If you didn't realize, he says, if you didn't realize this before, but I hope you do now, when you see how quick to act the regime is to condemn and investigate the supposed human rights abuses of illegal aliens, they put a lot of resources together really quick for them. But when it comes to your human rights, your natural-born, God-given rights, they could care less. Actually, they will gladly stomp on those rights right in front of your face and brag about just to spite you. We have really got to start pushing this idea of breaking up the states because we cannot continue to live under and pay taxes to a group of people that hate our existence. This is tyranny. That's from Nadarb. Love that comment. Thank you, Nadarb, for sharing that. That's a good... I feel a lot of... I resonate with a lot of your emotion there. No Doubt says, why does Mayorkas have to, quote, read the part of the speech that says the border is not open? Can he remember that part? Or is it just a strange concept that he is double checking? It's a good question. But yeah, I noticed that, right? He's reading that. Just go up and say it. TOS Forever says, did anyone else notice the freeze frame pictures were the same man in the blue shirt? If you do not ride yeah, I did. I noticed that. If you do not ride a horse, how do you know what all the ropes are and how the rider is using them? That's TOS Forever. So I don't know, right? I have not, I don't know. I didn't claim to know. I really don't know, but it didn't look like he was whipping them. He looked like he was doing something with the animal. And so, you know, I guess that's a fair point. You know, I'm supposing that something was happening. AOC is supposing something else was happening. It's a fair point, but it didn't look like a whip to me. It looked like controlling an animal. Nadarb says, follow Real Anthony Aguero, aka Border Network News, for YouTube coverage of the Southern invasion nearly every night. I don't know the guy personally, but he does amazing work. You won't find anywhere else. He deserves the eyeballs. So Anthony Aguero, aka the Border Network News on YouTube. Thank you, Nadarb. We have Screw Joe Biden says, Joe Biden and his admin should have the reputation dragged through the mud through the internet. They are trash. They love immigrants so that they can be used for slave labor and make that money. We have Ghost Gunner says, what's the point of the letter from the governors? Biden has openly told the states to sue them over the vaccine mandates. He's more than okay with openly breaking the law. He's the dictator everyone was calling Trump. I think that's very true. The letter's not going to do anything. He's not going to meet with them. He doesn't care. We have It's Ed says, let's be honest, what is the difference between this and riding around in a truck, wrangling illegal migrants with metal handcuffs, tasers? It's been 9 months yesterday, but what promises have Democrats fulfilled? Nothing. They could easily change border laws, yet they choose to do nothing. The left loves to use European nations as an example for their leftist agenda when it comes to economic policies, but what about border issues? Try and cross a border illegally in Europe, see what happens. Here's a hint. You'll be greeted with a force multiplier. They will pull the trigger. My wife is a first-generation American, but she spent her high school life in Serbia. She laughs when she hears Americans talk about immigration. She says, try and do that in Europe. They'll shoot you. I don't think we should shoot people, but this needs to be stopped. This is truly hurting everyone. Barbara Jordan recited a report released by Gerald Reynolds that states Nothing hurts the black community more than illegal immigration, the report listed below. Yeah, look, I try not to get into too much of that, right? But there are only so many resources in one country. And America has a lot of problems currently, if you haven't noticed. And they're compounding, it seems like. So it is going to continue. And it's surprising to me that certain constituents in this country aren't more, outraged about it. Former LEO says, how about we take a page from the Democrats' playbook? If conservatives see any video, photo, or tweet taken out of context, they should publish it and let them go on the defense. We've been on the defense for too long. We don't know how long or how to go on the offense and lie just like them. It worked for them for years because the Democrats can see it works. Why change the game plan? Just cheat, and be hard to beat. It's from former LEO. I guess that's one strategy, former LEO. It'd be better than what the Republicans are currently doing because they're not doing anything. But I get your point. Peely Wally says, let's see. Okay, so yeah. Peely Wally, I appreciate that. I'm going to skip that comment because it's YouTube. I got to be careful. Kamala says, we are offering a pathway to citizenship to Haitians in Afghanistan. That's nice. That's nice. Just a switcheroo. We have former LEO says we could always send the illegals to Afghanistan to make up for their population loss. Says that works for him. And Deadmau says, so those images still portraying human rights abuses basically boils down to something like this. Let's see if I want to pull this open. Oh, yeah. So something like this, right? It's kind of like one of these Rorschach tests. You kind of look at what you think, you see what you want to see, or the media kind of twists things into a narrative. So on the one side, we see a guy that looks like he's flipping somebody off. On the other side, it's just he's holding up 3 fingers. Interesting. We have another one from Savdi says, it's another jump to a useful interpretation like Bubba Wallace's noose to be misconstrued to support their narratives. That's from Savdi. Thank you, Savdi. We have Perry Masonary says, they only care to grant amnesty. The mission is to make the U.S. a permanent Democrat-controlled country. I think that when you start to consider what some of the rationale is, that a demographic shift is part of the equation. Chairman of the board says it's clear these people were storming the border in an attempted insurrection to overthrow the U.S. government. Maybe the Capitol Police should be in charge of the border now that their funding has been increased. Yeah, they're also in other parts of the country, just setting up offices all over the place. So that's fun. We have Mustang Jeff says, how sad it is that young children are being left in bushes. Stop the incentives with the open borders routine. Totally agree. It's horrific. We have another one from Avalon says, horses can go many more places than vehicles. Open range, yes, vehicles are superior, but when they are heading into unknown terrain, having a ride that can help you out of a situation is beneficial. Yeah, I mean, it would be hard to get any other conveyance in that area, right? You're not going to have a motorcycle or something or a dirt bike. Horse makes sense. It's kind of the perfect thing for that. Thank you, Avalon. We have Jay He says, are you sure that was Alejandro Mayorkas and not Jeff Bezos? The resemblance is uncanny. They do look a lot alike. See the Veil says, hey, Rob, good to see you back up. Sunshine, soak up the Arizona sun. Don't worry too much about them border horses. They got spirit. Is it weird that Harris isn't on a horse helping out with Border Patrol? Would Harris be handing out passports and UBIs with a big smile saying, welcome, here's some free money? Or would Harris be turning them away with the use of handcuffs? Or would Harris be giving out phone numbers to the Clinton Foundation, just saying it's not normal with the White House pivot? Who truly controls the country? The Clinton Human Trafficking Foundation? I don't know, see the veil. But it is interesting when you get to see a uniform pivot. Everybody just sort of, whoop, we're talking about this now. Very convenient. We have Engineer 12 Vote says, would you do a video on the missing killed YouTuber? The media is spinning this issue, and it is another case of guilty until proven innocent. As a victim of being abused, I think it needs light shown on this topic. Which I'm not sure who we're talking about. Is that the Gabby case? I haven't paid much attention to that. But engineer, yeah, if you're on local, so shoot me a message. I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but I'll take a look. Radice says, I'm tired of hearing about the border. I want to know more about Afghanistan, the election, and AOC's abuela. Well, we'll get back to that. The border was just something that we got to knock out of the way. We'll get back into the good stuff as soon as my voice starts, healing back up. Kincaid says, hey, Rob, I had the vids. This seems like vote seating to me. Also, you sound much better to my ears. Well, thank you, Kincaid. I am still healing up. That was the last question over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We had a couple super chats come in. Jason Jackson says, for being a voice super trooper. Thank you, Jason Jackson. I appreciate that support. And thanks for enduring the voice today. Yvette also with a super chat, no question, but thank you, Yvette. I appreciate that as well. Very generous. We have Jennifer. Jennifer was, I think, who messaged me over on Twitter, and she said, Rob, get the throat coat. Get the throat coat because it has original slippery elm. Oh, slippery elm. Just lather that throat up. So thank you, Jennifer, for that. And she also chimed in, said, a picture is worth 1,000 narratives. Complete context is key. Good to see and hear you. Keep coating that throat, Rob. I will. Thank you, Jennifer, and thanks for the recommendation. I picked it up. We got Paula Nix. Says, I saw federal workers along with who I believe to be Eric Coomer with checklists from Dominion supporting Antifa on 11/4/20 beside the Supreme Court. Okay, well, I'll have to take a look at that one, Paul. I'm not familiar with that, with what's going on there, but I appreciate that. And we have Michael MJL with the last one, says that take this opportunity to bring up Clinton's Haiti history. Yeah, a couple commenters mentioned that. I didn't think about weaving that into this story, but there's a lot of weird things that happened there. After the earthquake and a lot of that devastation down there, the Clinton Foundation just went in to save people. And a lot of weird things happen that I think are very interesting. Back on locals, we've got chairman of the board with a spicy comment alert, says Kamala Harris said she was against using horses at the border because they have such large heads. And her experience, and in her experience, everyone likes a little head. One more time. Kamala Harris said she was against using horses at the border because they have such large heads. And in her experience, everyone likes a little head. Heyo, that's from chairman of the board. Good to see you, chairman. Thank you for that one. We have Monster One says, Rob, it wasn't a horse. It was AOC trying to get a photo up. Oh, we got the jokes coming in. Oh, no. No Doubt says, Republicans need a two-part game plan, control the border, and then win over the new residents and undermine their plan. Yeah, that was from No Doubt. And then we got two more before we get out of here. Former LEO says, another topic to cover is the Garrett Foster shooting because the sergeant that shot him was just indicted for murder. Ooh, I did not know that. Yeah, that'll be a good one. Good criminal law. We need some good criminal law back here on the show. Miss Danny says, Robert, just want to say hi. Wish you a recovery. Please take care of your health. Best regards from Uruguay. Thank you, Miss Danny. I will. I am taking good care of myself. I just am, I'm just hoarse. That's all. Sarah Jessica Parker says, I'm not racist. That's the horse that we were talking about. We have Watcher 45 says, I think the interesting thing here is that I do not believe these immigrants are stupid. They want in to better themselves and their families. They're smart. I bet this open border thing backfires on the Democrats hard in the years to come. After all, our fellow Hispanics are leaning right, not left. Why do you think they deport Haitians, but not Mexicans? That's from Watcher 45. And that was the last one over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. So we'll leave it there. I want to thank all of you for being a part of the show. Did not update this slide today, but I want to thank everybody who joined last week, joined our community over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. It is a great thing. We've got on Saturday, October 2nd, a monthly locals meetup taking place via Zoom at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And that, my friends, is it for me and the show for the day. Once again, apologies on the voice, but we're just going to continue to work through it. So if it's too much, check back in a couple days and hopefully it is better. But I really do appreciate you being here. I really want to thank everybody for all the love and the support. You know, yesterday I was super frustrated with the show, and I've been frustrated with my voice. It feels like one of my main tools for living has been sort of taken away. And oftentimes we get a little bit too, I think, reliant or we don't appreciate some of our health oftentimes when our health sort of goes away from us. And so, I'm sort of recognizing that. I appreciate all of the love. I've got so many different remedies and different lozenges and things like that. And I am just grateful for the opportunity to be able to spend a little bit of time here with you today. We're going to get back in gear as soon as things heal up a little bit further. But until then, I want to once again thank you and wish everybody a tremendous evening. Rest very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.